So when you go to a party and you introduce yourself as a doctor, a waiter, an actor, most people have a pretty clear idea about what it is you do. So when I show up and say I'm a success coach, a lot of people are interested. And they say, well, you know, what exactly is that? And I used to have a really great, convoluted, intellectual answer, all to do with strategy and accountability and motivation. And now I just say, I'm about making sure that your dream comes true. And a lot of times you'll find that people are a little bit nervous about the whole area of dreams. They'll sort of wonder, well, should I be dreaming at all? Does that not just set you up for disappointment? And as you can see, this is a scene from Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot, or as my American friends would say, Waiting for Godot. And I think that the Irish playwrights, more than any other, have been extraordinary when it comes to making sure we can see the beautiful in the bleak. If you think about people like J.M. Singh, you think about Sean O'Casey, you think about Beckett, that in Ireland for a very long time, we had very little except our hope, our love, our imagination, and our willingness to get up and use our hands and work the earth. And this is something that I think is still part of us. Unfortunately, these days, people have had disappointments. And we're not just talking about the disappointment of losing your 10th investment apartment. We're talking about the kind of investments that people put in that really were about themselves. That maybe you started up a charitable organization only to see it crumble to nothing. Or maybe you had this big dream that you were going to own your own house by the time you were 30, and that came to nothing. Maybe the stress of it caused your relationship to fall apart. And these are very important things. So the first thing that I want to say to you is that I don't take failure lightly. I'm not about just wishful thinking and sure, if we all just think magically and stay happy, then it's all going to be okay, because that's not actually the reality. The reality is much, much better than that. So when I said to the people at TED that I wanted to come and talk about failure, they sort of said, well, I think people have that down. I think they know how to do that bit. Can you actually talk to them about success? And I said, well, you know, I don't think I can. Because you have to understand failure in order to understand where your success is going to come from. And the first thing that we have to do is, first of all, we have to defend the whole idea of dreaming. Because so often people will say, oh, well, you know what, I don't have any goals for myself. And I say to them, well, you might want to rethink that. Because when you have a goal for yourself, it's not about getting the thing. It really is about who you have to become in order to make that thing happen. That you become a much more valuable person to this world when you have done something that you've dreamt about. Maybe you've dreamt about it from a very young age. I remember that I was very typical as a child. I had my dreams. You know, I wanted a great set of wheels. I wanted a fairy tale castle. And I wanted a great big love. And that's what I wanted as a child. And then, of course, I grew up and I became very sophisticated, very overeducated, and my dreams changed. And then I wanted a great set of wheels, a fairy tale castle, and a great big love. And these are the things that really get me up every morning, is making sure that people get what's important to them. And then once you have the things that are important to you, the basic things, the things that you just sort of say, I have to get them, I have to get them now, then you can use the person that you've become in order to make better things happen in the world. So let's be really clear that you don't have to skip this part. A lot of people say, well, you know what, I don't have dreams about money. I don't have goals to do with material wealth. And I say, well, you might want to get some, because you're not transcending. You're actually skipping if you don't get those things in place. If you can't look after yourself, if you can't look after yourself, your family, feed yourself, put a roof over your head. So this is why when I talk about dreams, it's from a very, very basic level. It's from the level of, you know, what's in my heart, what has to happen. And then when it doesn't happen, how do we recover from that and make sure that we get those things in place so that we can start to dream from a higher place. We can start to dream bigger. So the reason that dreams don't come true, you might think that it's got everything to do with the economy. It's got a tiny, tiny, tiny bit to do with the economy. And it's got an even smaller bit to do with your parents. Really, it's about how good are your dreams, how good are your goals. Because the first thing that I've noticed is that for a lot of people, what they say they want and what they're focusing on isn't what they really, really want. That they might say, I want an enormous mansion. And in fact, their unconscious mind, which is the bigger part of them, doesn't want that. The unconscious mind knows that it'll be a real pain in the ass to have to look after this place, to have to supervise staff, to have to pay the taxes. And so they're kind of working against themselves. And they wonder why they're not creating this big mansion. It's because you really don't want it. So you have to get real with what it is that you want. Some people say, well, what I want to do is I want to be a really famous actor. And maybe they don't. Maybe they just want a little bit more attention. And that maybe they can get that attention by giving that attention. So that's the first part of the reason why people fail. Failure makes sense. And once you understand the mechanism of failure, you can make sure that you can completely avoid it. Does that sound good? All right, so the next part is that they don't believe that they can get it. And really what happens, the reason that they don't believe that they can get it is because they've tried it before and it hasn't happened. Or maybe they don't even get to that stage. Maybe they've just heard about someone who's tried it before and didn't get it. And then the brain is so extraordinary. The brain is brilliantly made. It is made to keep you alive. And if it will only do what works, it will do what has worked in the past. So if you, say, eat junk food today, you'll crave junk food tomorrow. Why? Because there's a part of the brain that says, hey, junk food keeps us alive. You know, let's do that again. So things like our cravings and what we do absolutely make sense. The brain is perfectly designed. So the reasons that right now we don't believe that the Celtic tiger type dream is impossible is because we tried it once and it didn't work out exactly as we wanted in exactly the time frame that we wanted it to. Or perhaps it did work out in that time frame and it didn't sustain, or it didn't sustain for everybody. So the point is this, that if you are believing that it's not possible for you, you're not actually going to go ahead and get it. So what has happened is we have a situation where a lot of people, not just in Ireland, but all around the world, downsized their dream. And they said to themselves, well, if I can't have the big dream, the stuff I really want, what I'll do is I'll start going for, you know, a nice enough job, a stable enough family, supportive friends, and maybe some nice stuff to put in the house. And that's all well and good. Those are good goals. Those are honorable goals, that's what you're going to do. They're very responsible goals. The problem with those goals is that your brain has this reaction. Your brain is bored by your goals. And if your brain is bored, the parts of your brain, like the reticular activating system, where the blueprint is actually put down, telling you what is going to be allowed into your realm of focus and what isn't. Things like the amygdala, which is all about like the emotional juice, the frontal lobes, which actually do all the working out of, you know, what needs to happen to put this dream in place, they go to sleep too. So basically, this is your brain without a dream. And that's very serious. So if you're telling yourself, I can't get it, therefore I'll go for something less, you have less chance of getting that smaller thing than you did of getting that larger thing, simply because your brain is not awake. Now, whenever a speaker comes up with a slide that has fruit flies on it, you know this. The science bit's coming up. And I am a huge fan of Dr. Corey Bargman from Rockefeller University. And she talks a lot about aggression in animals and the way that animals fight for scarce resources. So basically, if you have only a small amount of food or a small number of females to mate with, the males are going to fight aggressively until one wins. And this is very, very simple, but we also work in this way. And what's been discovered is that not only do the animals, the fruit flies or other more complex animals, remember this. They remember it because it becomes chemically imprinted. So what happens is that neurotransmitters like serotonin actually have this impact on your brain that say, hey, when you fought a guy that was this big the last time, it didn't work out well, to say the least. So we're not sending you there in there again. And this works for animals. But as humans, we're different. Because what we can do is we can override this. And the reason we can override it is because we have resourcefulness and resources that animals do not have. And as such, there is no such thing as the fact that if this guy this size beat you the last time, he's going to beat you again. We have the ability to find different ways of doing it. However, we are still living under that old-style brain. We still have that old-style brain. So what we want to do is we want to just sit there on our sofas and not go out there and try and get that deal. Because it feels like this sometimes. You went for that mortgage and you got bitten in the throat. At least that's how it felt. So you are wired to not want to go back there again. And it made sense when there was a scarcity of resources. But now that we can live as communities and we can share and we can find new ways, and there is always a way. There is always a way. And this is why we have to overcome that type of patterning. And we can do it through reconditioning ourselves. Oh, absolutely. There we go. OK, thank you for that. Thank you. So basically, this is my hero of the hour. It's a guy called Shay Carl. And for those of you, I can see some of you smiling in the audience, you know exactly who this guy is. He has a thing on YouTube called the Shaytards. And it's basically his family. And every day, he creates a video of his family, just what they're doing for the day. For about 15 or 20 minutes, he edits it together, and he puts it up online every single day. Now, a few years ago, what he did for a living was he went around and he fitted out bathrooms and kitchens with granite surfaces, or he did the measurements for fitting them out with granite surfaces. And he really wasn't very happy with his life. He felt like he'd failed. He tried a whole bunch of different things, and he really wasn't making it. And instead of sitting in and saying, well, you know what, I was beaten by just measuring granite counters, and so therefore I'm going to do something less, he just followed his passion. He just said to himself, well, what is it that I really want to do? And in so doing, he managed to create this enormous phenomenon where over 500,000 people every single day check in to see what this gorgeous, extraordinary family are up to. And in so doing, they are shown new levels and new standards for love and family values and just general hilarity and mayhem. And he really serves humanity, I think, by doing this very, very simple thing, this very, very real thing. And now he gets paid. Now he's able to live a kind of lifestyle that he only used to dream about, because by putting them up on YouTube, he gets paid for the advertising that goes along with those videos. And if you think about it, he could not have done this if other people weren't working on his behalf while he was probably sitting there thinking that things weren't working out. So as Shay Carl was sitting on his sofa thinking, what am I going to do? I have this young family. I have these 3 kids. He now has 4. What am I going to do? I'm going to let them down. At that very time, there were people who were developing YouTube into the phenomenon that it is today so that he could, in latter years, go on to do what he now does. So if you're feeling like somehow your life isn't working out and your dream isn't working out, I think it's really helpful to remember that a lot of the work has already been done for you. That already someone has put in the thousands of hours that it has taken to raise that person that you are very soon going to meet and marry. that already people are doing things that I don't know about and you don't know about because they're doing them in their bedrooms and we're going to know about them in a couple of years' time. And somehow that is going to serve you and somehow that is going to be part of your dream. But how would it be if everybody just sat there in a very waiting for Godot kind of way and just came up with these hypnotic repetitions and hypnotic, daily activities and kept waiting for this rescue that probably will never arrive, instead of getting up and walking down that road and saying, you know what, I don't know what's there, but I know that I'm not defeated. I know that nothing is bigger than me. And I know that the whole universe and everyone in it is conspiring to make my dream come true. Which brings us back to our friend Samuel Beckett. And I just love when he said, ever tried, ever failed, no matter. Try again, fail better. And because I know that you are made of magic stuff and that you were put here to do something extraordinary, I'd like to gently invite you also to dream again and dream better. Thank you.